$65 billion just disappeared, evaporated. People who spent their entire lives saving for retirement woke up one morning and realized they had nothing left. Charitable foundations that helped sick children shut down overnight. An 87-year-old woman took her own life because she lost all her savings. And you know what's most terrifying? The man who did this wasn't some shadowy criminal from a back alley. He was a Wall Street legend. He was respected, trusted, with people lining up and begging to give him their money. Bernie Madoff. This name became synonymous with the largest financial fraud in human history. And the craziest thing about this story is that his scheme was so simple you'll understand it in 3 minutes. But it worked for 30 years. 30 years. To understand how one man managed to deceive thousands of the smartest people on the planet, we need to go back in time. Bernie Madoff started as just a regular guy from Queens. In 1960, when he was only 22 years old, he opened his investment company with $5,000 he earned installing sprinkler systems and working as a lifeguard at the beach. Nothing special. But Bernie had talent. He really understood the market. He was one of the pioneers of electronic stock trading. His company grew. He became a respected man on Wall Street, even served as chairman of NASDAQ. People saw a successful businessman, a philanthropist, a country club member, a man who had lunch with senators and billionaires. When such a person offers to invest your money, you don't ask questions. You say, "Thank you for the opportunity." But somewhere in the 70s or 80s, nobody knows exactly when, something went wrong. Perhaps there were losses that needed to be hidden. Perhaps it was greed. Bernie launched a Ponzi scheme. And here's how it works. You come to me and give me $1 million. I promise you stable returns, let's say 10% per year. Sounds realistic. Not too much, not too little. After a year, you want to see your profit. I give you $100,000. You're happy. But here's the secret. I didn't invest your money. I didn't do anything with it at all. That $100,000 I gave you is money from another client who came to me a month ago. I pay old clients with new clients' money. That's the whole scheme. It works as long as new people keep coming with new money. But the moment the flow dries up, everything collapses like a house of cards. It would seem such a scheme is easy to uncover. But Bernie was a genius at manipulation. He created an aura of exclusivity around his fund. He didn't chase clients. Clients chased him. He turned people down. Imagine, a millionaire comes to you and begs you to take his money and you say, "Sorry, we don't have space, maybe in a year." What happens in that millionaire's head? He thinks, if Bernie is turning me down, it means he's so successful he doesn't need my money. That means this really is the best place to invest, and he starts wanting it even more. Psychology. Pure psychology. We always want what's unavailable to us. And now, here's the most interesting part. Bernie didn't give his clients some incredible returns. He didn't promise to double your money in a month. No, he gave modest, stable 10 to 12% per year. Every year. Without failures. That was the red flag nobody noticed. Anyone who understands even a little about investing knows there's no such thing as stable returns every year. The market goes up, the market goes down. Everyone has bad years, everyone except Bernie. The 2008 financial crisis, Bernie showed a profit. When everyone was losing money, he was making it. And this didn't alarm anyone. People didn't want to ask questions because they were afraid Bernie would kick them out. They were afraid of losing access to the golden goose. A woman named Harry Markopoulos, a financial operations analyst, tried to warn regulators back in 1999. She wrote to the Securities and Exchange Commission, explained why Madoff's results were mathematically impossible. She sent reports. She screamed about it. You know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Regulators conducted several audits, but each time Bernie managed to fool them. How? He created fake documents. He showed them account statements that looked absolutely real. He had an entire floor of the office, the 17th floor, where no one was allowed. People sat there creating fictitious reports, thousands of pages of fake trades that never existed. It was like a parallel reality. Clients saw on paper that their money was growing, but in reality that money had been gone for a long time. Now imagine the scale. On Madoff's client list weren't just wealthy people. There were Hollywood stars like Steven Spielberg, owners of Major League Baseball teams, European aristocrats, charitable organizations. The Elie Wiesel Foundation, the Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate, lost $15.5 million. This was money intended for Holocaust education, gone. Universities lost their endowments, hospitals lost their funding, pension funds went bankrupt. A man named René Thierry Magon de la Villouche, a French aristocrat managing a large fund, took his own life after learning that all his clients' money was gone. Bernie's wife wore jewelry worth millions while elderly people lost everything. And all this time, all these years, Bernie knew perfectly well that sooner or later it would end. It couldn't not end. A Ponzi scheme is mathematically doomed to fail. It needs an infinite flow of new money, and nothing can grow forever. The 2008 financial crisis was the final straw. The market crashed, people started withdrawing money all at once, and that's when Bernie ran out of options. He needed $7 billion for payouts, and he had at most $200 to $300 million. On December 10, 2008, Bernie invited his sons, Mark and Andrew, who worked in the legitimate part of his business, to his Manhattan apartment and told them the truth. He said he'd been deceiving people all this time, that all the money was gone, that it was all one big lie. His sons were in shock. The next day, they went to a lawyer, and the lawyer called the FBI. On December 11th, 2 agents came to Madoff's house. He opened the door and said, "I know why you're here." He was almost relieved it was over. 30 years of lies. Can you imagine what it's like to wake up every day knowing you're building the biggest financial pyramid in history? After the arrest, the investigation began. And the deeper investigators dug, the more horrifying the picture became. It turned out Bernie hadn't even traded stocks for the last 13 years. At all. 0 trades. All those reports, all those numbers, all that portfolio growth, pure fantasy. The money just sat in a bank account at Chase Manhattan Bank, and Bernie distributed it among clients as he pleased. He paid some, didn't pay others. Some clients over the years withdrew more money than they invested. Unknowingly, they were participating in the crime, receiving other people's money. The trial was quick. Bernie pleaded guilty to 11 counts. He didn't try to defend himself. On June 29, 2009, Judge Denny Chin sentenced him to 150 years in prison, the maximum possible term. The judge said, "This is not just a matter of money. It's a matter of trust that you betrayed." Victims sat in the courtroom. They cried. They screamed. One woman said, "I hope you rot in prison every day for the rest of your life." Bernie stood silent. He was 71 years old. He knew he would never be free. But the tragedy didn't end there. 2 years later, his eldest son Mark hanged himself in his apartment on the anniversary of his father's arrest. He left a note for his wife and young child. He couldn't live with the stigma of being Bernie Madoff's son. 3 years later, his younger son Andrew died of cancer. Some say stress and shame accelerated his illness. Bernie's wife, Ruth, lost everything. She was expelled from society. All her friends turned away from her. She lives in a small apartment on a modest pension. She said in interviews that she and Bernie tried to commit suicide together after his arrest, but they didn't have the courage. Can you imagine such a family tragedy? Bernie Madoff died in prison on April 14, 2021, at the age of 82. Until the end of his life, he received threatening letters from people he had ruined. But you know what he said in rare interviews from prison? He said the banks knew. That J.P. Morgan Chase, which held his main account, should have asked questions. That regulators were incompetent. He shifted blame. Until his last day, he didn't fully realize what he'd done, or pretended not to realize. And what happened to the money? Of the $65 billion people thought they had, the real money was much less. Most of that amount is fictitious profit that never existed. Special trustee Irving Picard is still working, trying to return something to the victims. Over these years, they've managed to recover about $14 billion. That's a lot, but it doesn't restore lost lives, destroyed families, suicides, heart attacks from stress. Here's what's important to understand. Madoff's scheme didn't work because of his financial genius. It worked because of human psychology. People wanted to believe. They saw what they wanted to see. When your neighbor is earning a stable 10% per year and you don't think he's participating in fraud. You think you're missing something. You want to be part of the club. This is called FOMO, fear of missing out. Bernie used this ruthlessly. He created an illusion of exclusivity, and people ran to him with money themselves. Another important lesson is the role of regulators. The Securities and Exchange Commission audited Madoff several times and found nothing. Why? Because they didn't want to believe that such a respected man could be a fraudster. Because they didn't dig deep enough. Because perhaps they lacked competence. Harry Markopolos handed them everything on a silver platter, mathematically proved the impossibility of Madoff's results, and they ignored her. This is a system failure. The investor protection system didn't work. And you know what's most terrifying? Ponzi schemes didn't disappear with Madoff. They exist right now. Maybe on smaller scales, maybe with different names, but the essence is the same. Someone promises incredible returns. Someone talks about a secret strategy. Someone uses complex terms so you don't ask questions. And people fall for it again and again, because greed and fear of missing out are part of human nature. If I had to derive the main lesson from Bernie Madoff's story, it would be this. If something sounds too good to be true, it's not true. There's no magic formula. There's no guaranteed profit. There's no person who always beats the market. If someone promises you stable, high returns without risk, run. Just turn around and leave. It doesn't matter how respectable this person looks. It doesn't matter how many diplomas they have on the wall. It doesn't matter who else trusts them. Ask uncomfortable questions. Demand transparency. Verified documents. And if you're told the strategy is too complex to explain, that's a red flag the size of a football field. Madoff's story is a reminder that trust is fragile and greed is blind. Thousands of smart, educated, successful people lost everything because they wanted to believe in a miracle. But there are no miracles in finance. There's only hard work, reasonable risk, and realistic expectations. Everything else is smoke and mirrors. If this video made you think, hit the like button. If you know someone who's currently considering questionable investments, send them this story. Sometimes someone else's experience can save you from your own mistakes. Subscribe to the channel because we break down stories like this so you learn from other people's mistakes, not your own. There are many more incredible, frightening, and instructive stories from the world of finance and beyond ahead. Protect your money and your trust. They're very easy to lose and almost impossible to get back.